Imagine a distant era, made of knights, ladies, and imposing fortresses. Medieval castles, unmistakable symbols of power and defense, dominated the landscape with their massive bulk. Yet, behind those thick walls, life was anything but comfortable. In the meantime, subscribe to the Story of Asuta channel if you are passionate about these videos, and leave a like. Now let's start. In the Middle Ages, winter was a fearsome foe, even for kings. The thick stone walls protected from attacks, but not from the frost that crept in everywhere. Imagine a large room with a very high ceiling, with a single fire burning. The cold was everywhere, and fighting it required ingenuity. In this video, we will show you how the kings and their subjects faced the harsh winter and what solutions they adopted to heat the castles. You will discover the evolution of heating systems, from central and smoked fireplaces to stone fireplaces with chimneys to luxurious Majolica stoves, true symbols of status. And we will reveal to you that even then, rudimentary central heating systems were being tested. Some medieval principles were surprisingly modern. The stone, chosen for defensive reasons, was terrible at retaining heat. In many rooms, the same cold reigned as outside. For this reason, heavy clothing, furs, cloaks, and numerous layers of cloth were used. The famous noble clothes were not only decorative. Of course, it was not possible to heat the entire castle. The banquet halls, the kitchen, and the private rooms of the lords were limited. The rest remained cold. The stone floors were covered with carpets or straw, and curtains and tapestries were hung to insulate the walls. The windows, small and without glass, were closed with parchment or skins. They let in little light, but kept at least part of the wind. To warm up, one moved. Dances, games, fencing, and banquets helped to reactivate the circulation. Hot foods and drinks, spiced with pepper or ginger, were also useful. Another remedy was portable fireplaces. Metal containers with burning coals placed near the feet or under the tables. Primitive, but effective. Be careful, though. They risked causing fires or poisoning enclosed environments. The lords often retreated to small wood-paneled rooms, which retained the heat better. The rest of the servants stayed in black, warm, but smoky kitchens. One only had to move away from the fire, and their breath became visible in the air. In the early Middle Ages, the hearth was placed in the center of the main rooms. The king and his courtiers gathered around it to receive some warmth. But the smoke was a big problem. It rose to the ceiling, blackening beams and walls, and made the air unbreathable. Some castles had openings in the roof or rotating domes to facilitate its escape. Despite the precautions, the rooms were filled with smoke. To reduce the discomfort, very high ceilings were built. The smoke rose, and one could breathe better at the bottom. At night, the hearth was covered with ash or clay lids to retain the heat and prevent fires. From the 12th century onwards, the first stone fireplaces appeared in castles, built into the walls, with real chimneys. Smoke could finally be vented outside. Comfort improved considerably. One could breathe, talk, and move without being enveloped in smoke. Medieval fireplaces were large, decorated, and often monumental, capable of hosting real bonfires. They were also a symbol of prestige. Around the fire, people did not just warm themselves, they created new social centers in the rooms. With fireplaces, it was possible to heat even smaller rooms and upper floors, something previously unthinkable. The fireplaces were lined with bricks or ceramics to better reflect the heat. However, far from the flame, the cold remained biting. The most sophisticated invention was the tiled stove, introduced around the 11th century. These brick stoves, covered with glazed tiles, accumulated heat and released it slowly. It was enough to light them once, and the room remained warm for hours. For its time, it was a real revolution. In addition to being efficient, they were also beautiful. The tiles showed coats of arms, biblical motifs or chivalric decorations, often painted in bright colors. The stoves furnished and heated. However, they were expensive and reserved for nobles and rulers. Some were fed from adjacent rooms invisible to guests, a rare refinement but a symbol of the ingenuity of the era. Surprisingly, there were also hot air heating systems. Inspired by the Roman Hipparchus, some castles, such as Brandisnadorlici or Rockstein, had ovens in the basement that heated the air, then circulated through the walls and released into the upper floors. An extraordinary idea, but expensive and difficult to maintain. For this reason, it remained an exception. The topic of heating in medieval castles offers us a fascinating glimpse into daily life, in an era often associated with rigidity and simplicity. In reality, the need to make such imposing and difficult-to-heat spaces livable pushed medieval ingenuity towards solutions as varied as they were creative. From the simple central fireplace in the common rooms to the more complex stone or majolica stoves, up to the first examples of ducted heating, the evolution of heating techniques reflects not only the technological but also the cultural progress of the time. While on the one hand, the practical function, heating cold and humid environments, was a priority, on the other hand, a symbolic and social aspect also emerged. Heat became a sign of power, prestige, civilization. The warmest rooms were reserved for the lord and his court, while servants and soldiers were often relegated to much less comfortable spaces. Even the materials used, the embellishment of fireplaces, and the strategic position of heat sources reveal the growing importance attributed to domestic comfort within castle architecture. Although medieval solutions may seem rudimentary compared to today's standards, they represent the first fundamental steps towards a more modern concept of living. Attention to heat distribution, smoke reduction, to fuel efficiency, and even the design of heating structures demonstrates a surprising sensitivity to well-being, which challenges many stereotypes about the Middle Ages as a dark and backward period. That's all for today, and what do you think of this story? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe if you like these videos. You help us support the channel. See you next time. Bye.